Hey everybody, final thoughts time for Mistfall. And actually it's interesting, hopefully that was a run through that will give you a pretty good idea of how the game plays. So you can decide whether you want to back it on Kickstarter, because there's the link for Kickstarter right there, so you can go learn more about the game. But it's interesting. Longtime fans of my show might remember I did a run through at Essen 2013 for a game called Songs of Artha. And which was looking to be independently published by this very designer right here, whose name I can't remember how to pronounce. I think it was Blaza Kubaki. I don't remember. I'm sorry, Blaza. I think. Oh, Polish names. I'm very sorry, but he was a very nice guy. I sat down with him, did a run through for Songs of Artha. This game, Mistfall, is basically Songs of Artha evolved, adding a whole bunch of new stuff, adding a world map that you travel around, adding a bunch of new concepts and all that. And I have no idea, I have no inside information, I have no idea what happened. But when I sat down and started playing this with Jen for the first time, I was like, wait a minute, I remember playing this game 2 years ago. And so I mention this because while the run-through, I think, did a pretty good job of showing how all the basic stuff works and how the flow works, the one thing I didn't do a very good job, because you really need to spend more time playing, you need to start putting in a lot of really, some of your cool higher level abilities and whatnot into your deck. The game really comes alive when you start doing these very, very cool chains, combo chains with all the different cards in your hand and pulling off absolutely mind-bogglingly cool moves over and over and over again, which is what you need to be able to do to take out the really big, super tough bad guys. I mean, you have to be able to set up almost like this little engine of death and destruction with all the different cards you've got, the things you've got equipped, the things in your hand, the things that you have recently put onto the top of your deck or into your discard pile or into your burial pile, because you have so many ways that these cards can interact. I mean, every card in this game has like 3 or 4 keywords on it. And there are so many cards that say, all cards with this keyword or that keyword or that keyword. And that's really the crux of what this game is all about. Now, I mentioned again Songs of Artha because if you want, there's a link right there. You can go watch the run through I did for Songs of Artha. It was a very quick one, just went through like 1 or 2 rounds of combat. And I think it showed some of the really cool combinatorial things that I didn't necessarily show very well in this run through because I was still kind of at the beginning of the game and I was fighting some really weak enemies. So if you want to get an idea for what this game is like at the higher levels, when it really starts clicking, go check that out. But anyway, otherwise, what can I say about, the art is gorgeous. It works really, really well. I mean, the rules are very meticulously well thought out. Seems like they've really dealt with every little thing. And, and that's an important thing because this is a hugely, I was going to say complex. It's a deep game. There is so much going on. There is so much power, so many opportunities you have for mixing and matching. Again, and you can go check out the Songs of Artha video to get a better idea of just how intricate, that's the word, intricate the moves you make in this game can get. And that's what makes it special. And it's really, really cool. When you come up with like a really cool move that just, makes it, it's impossible to consider at the beginning of the game that what you can do towards the end of the game, very satisfying. If I had any complaint about this game at all, it would be, I think, that it's a bit on the long side. Much like last year's Assault at Doomrock, which was another fantasy co-op adventure game Jen and I absolutely loved, but also suffered from being way too long. Mistfall is a very long game. I mean, heck, the box proudly proclaims, although this is a prototype box, so it proclaims nothing. But I believe the default length that the box says is 2 hours, and I could certainly see it going longer. Now, it does come with a shorter adventure, to be fair. But, I think you really do want to play a long game because this game is really at its best after you've been playing for quite a while and you've spent a lot of resolve and you've got a lot of really cool abilities that, interact with all kinds of neat and interesting ways. And really, to be able to have that experience, you got to play for a while and level up and get all that stuff. So, I just mentioned that because for some people, a 2+ hour fantasy adventure game that's really intricate and really very demanding of your mental bandwidth might be a bit much. So that's something to be wary of. One thing, I have to admit, I'm not really all that crazy about the fact that every time you start playing, the deck of stuff you can buy is always the same. Personally, I would love to see something where, hey, you know what, every time you play, a third of these cards are what's available, maybe a third of the level 1s, 2s, 3s, and 4s, so that it gives a little bit more feel that, okay, in this particular game, this is the way I can evolve, as opposed to the more sandboxy approach that this game is taken. It's very much like modern Uwe Rosenberg games like Caverna. It's a sandbox where, no, everything's available to you. You can do whatever you want. It's up to you to find new and different ways. Personally, I would love a slightly more restricted. Well, this is the kind of character you can evolve into. Let's figure out the puzzle of how best to leverage that character. Where in this game, it's sandboxy. You figure out, the puzzle is to figure out what is the best character I can build, taking into account the creatures I'm fighting right now and the creature I'm ultimately going to face at the end of the adventure, the final bad guy. It works really well, don't get me wrong. It's not really a valid complaint. It's just kind of like a little peccadillo for me and Jen. It's just, this is a very broad decision space. You have a lot of options here. And personally, for my taste and Jen's taste, we'd like a few less options. And, but really, I think we're really on the outs. Most people prefer the more broad, wide open, do whatever you want. Look, here's a million options. Go nuts. Go to town. Pick and choose. And every time you play, you can evolve and create a unique, different take on that character. So every time you play, he's going to be, or she, since half of them are female, is going to be a different, unique, fresh approach. And that's it. I don't know what else to say. It's a solid game. I think it's definitely easily expandable. I could see this becoming an evergreen system. If it were coming from Fantasy Flight, that would be the case. They'd be putting out new, card packs with new types of enemies, new types of characters, new types of abilities for existing characters, new encounters. I said this right up front, but I gotta say, probably more than anything else, the thing I really appreciate is how much variety you get out of these encounters. Just in the video I saw, the hunter encounter I had is radically different in feel than whatever the second encounter was. The Sentinel under assault versus ambush, which feels very different than Winds of Death, which feels very different than the Black Coach, which feels very different than Relentless Pursuers. I love the variety that's in this game. The variety, even though you're playing with the same 4 characters every time, the characters can evolve in very different ways. The encounters you get will evolve in different ways. Or, the specific series of encounters, but the way those two things interact will make every play of this game fresh. And so if you're willing to sit down for 2+ hours to do it, I think you'll have a great time, and you'll get a really great sense of satisfaction as you level up. Although, of course, it can be very, very frustrating if you spend all those 2 hours and then at the end, you don't cross the finish line and you lose. Heck, maybe that's Jen's and my problem. We just don't like co-op games that take 2+ hours. Because a co-op game like Pandemic that we can finish, win or lose, easily in under an hour, we don't mind so much if we lose. But if we play for 2 or 3 hours, and we make it all the way up to the end and then we lose, that's crushing, that's devastating. So it's just something to bear in mind. But again, who cares what Jen and I think? Hopefully, between this run through and if you want to go check out the Songs of Arthur run through to get a sense for like some of the more intricate interplay between the cards, hopefully you have a pretty good idea of whether Mistfall is something you might want to back on Kickstarter. Because again, the link's right there. So that's it, folks. Questions, comments, concerns, as always, very appreciated. Any mistakes I made, I'll be more than happy to note them up. Although, if you notice any mistakes, please check to make sure Apollo didn't already catch them, because he normally does. And that's it, folks. Thanks for watching. Talk to you later. So long. Bye-bye.